In an absolute stacked wide receiver class, there are a few guys who make their way to the top of the list. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors are the two biggest talks in the town at this position, but Rome Odunze might just sneak in and take the spotlight. Following a great 2023 season and with what many people thought was worthy of the Biletnikoff Award, I think he's going to pan out. Will he produce like he did in college, or will he fail to live up to the hype? I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to Rome Odunze, a detailed scouting report. Enjoy. Before we get into the film, here is a quick overview of Rome Odunze's collegiate career. A four-star composite recruit out of Nevada, he played for the elite Bishop Gorman High School, who finished with a combined 50 wins and 7 losses while he was there. He stayed on the West Coast and verbally committed to Washington before the start of his senior season. He didn't play much his first 2 seasons, combining for 47 receptions, 487 yards, and 4 touchdowns. His junior season is when he first got over 1,000 yards, as he hauled in 75 passes for over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. He put himself on the map during his junior season, enough to where people thought he was a top 10 wide receiver on some big boards. Yet, he decided to return to Washington for his senior season. And oh boy, was it worth it. 92 receptions, 1,640 receiving yards, and 13 touchdowns. Alongside all of that, he added a rushing touchdown and a return touchdown. His insane season brought him to the top of NFL draft big boards. And as a result, he forewent his final year of eligibility and entered the 2024 NFL Draft. With an elite combination of abilities and no huge negatives, he's going to be good. Let's get into the film. Before we get into the specifics on film, one strength in Odunze's game is his frame. He stands at a stout 6'3", 215 pounds, and his build is a bit intimidating for a wide receiver. For comparison, the average NFL wide receiver is 6'2", 205 pounds, and Odunze has both of those guidelines met. Another comparison is fellow draft prospect Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a slim 6'4", 205 pounds. Some people may think that Odunze's frame will impact his athleticism, and while it somewhat does, it's not as significant as his frame may give off. Being 6'3", 215 pounds is going to translate well. Through all of his specific positives about to be discussed, Odunze is a 3-level threat with efficiency at every level of the field. When it comes to statistics, he was quite possibly the best deep receiver in college football last season, catching 23 of 49 targets for 783 yards and 6 touchdowns. 35% of Odunze's targets went for 20-plus yards, as did 25% of his receptions. Outside of being that deep threat, he didn't have a bad part of the field. His great route running and Penix's trustworthiness in delivering him the ball resulted in plenty of good receptions. He averaged 2.93 yards per route run, he caught a majority of his passes in the short game but had great rates of yak, and he caught every target from behind the line of scrimmage. He's a beast at every level of the field, but let's get into the specifics on why he can attack from everywhere. Let's begin with his great route running abilities. I'll be honest, I wasn't too impressed when I first started watching his film, and while it's still not spectacular by any means, the fact that there are multiple reasons why his route running is so good is why it easily finds its way into my positives section. Let me begin with the fact that his routes are just crisp in general. His quick feet and very nice body control allow for quick change of direction, mostly on 90-degree in or out routes. He doesn't spend too much time on his footwork to change direction, but this is kind of present on vertical routes, and I'll discuss that later. Here's an example of his crisp route running. He explodes off the snap, takes one step to gain an advantage going out, then cuts back into space and stops with no drag in his route, leaving a defensive back on his ass. The rest of the route will be discussed in the rest of the sections, as well as this entire play is just phenomenal. I saw a lot of crispiness on out routes, and it started here. One step and he's already on the second half of his route. He gets the ball and gets out, which was the point of the entire route, but I just love watching the one step then bang kind of routes. Another thing that Odunze does very well is hitting combo routes with quickness and elusiveness and getting open with deception on these combination routes. Translating from the crispiness section, his best combo routes come through out then in or in then out routes rather than just non-90 degree. An example coming here against Boise State, where he attacks the space and zone defense using his combo route. Out, then in. Down the sideline, grab, and go. He couldn't break the first tackle, but his quick awareness made it so he almost could. That is one other thing I can say about Odunze is he's not a possession guy. Because of his great hands, which will be discussed shortly, he's got a tendency to get the ball and try to make more of it. Unless it's a team move, he's trying to get yacked. The final part of route running I want to discuss is his spatial awareness. As I mentioned before, he has a nature to make quick decisions and get into space using his explosive breaks. Like on this route, where his assignment was leaving a heavy cushion, and with the hole on the inside zone, he cut at a good time to get into that space and get open. He may not have received the ball, but he still made a good play. Overall, Odunze's route running is nothing spectacular, but it's crisp and consistent enough to the point where it's easily a strength in his game. Up next on this list of strengths for Odunze are his ball skills, which act as a second reason to throw him the ball. He can get separation at good rates in zone coverage. If he can't get separation, you could still throw it to him because of his ball skills. It begins with his insane catch radius. He's got a wingspan that's even big for a guy of his size, and he's got the vertical to jump up and grab passes that some 6'5" receivers can't grab. Let's return to that Boise State grab I said I would return to. So he goes through his route as we mentioned before, but by the time the ball flies to him, it's slightly off from Penix, which is one reason why Odunze had to stop so suddenly. He gets up, jumps high, gets his arms way outside to make the grab, and there isn't even a bobble. He just hauls it in easily. That catch radius is so huge. It can be a high ball, a low ball, or a wide ball, and he's going to make the grab. That's where we continue. He's got very good ball tracking abilities as well. Using that same catch radius, he is able to haul in passes in different directions. Alluding to his route running, he can make great adjustments with this tracking as shown in this touchdown against Cal. He gets the throw, but it's a bit outside. He adjusts and cuts outside quick and perfectly tracks the ball to make the grab. And just in general, his hands are really good. His sophomore year was a struggle as he dropped 7 passes, but he's combined for that in his last 2 seasons. He drops a pass on 2.8% of targets, which is one of the best rates in college football out of receivers with at least 75 targets. With the combination of being able to get open and being able to make contested grabs, he was the 3rd most targeted receiver in 2023 FBS. To end the positive section, I want to discuss his yak appeal. He had 18 screen passes thrown his way in 2023, and he made the most of a lot of them. He averaged 9.7 yards per catch on screen passes, which was 14th in all of FBS out of receivers with 10 or more screen targets. He was also top 25 in screen yards. When it comes to what I saw on film, let's return to the Boise State game yet again. Route made, catch made, now he's dodging for the end zone. He's got 2 defenders to beat here, and while he's unable to do it with his speed, he muscles up and gains a few yards of yak. That's what I like most about his ability to get yards after the catch. He muscles up and gets through. He scored a touchdown doing this against Cal, where he caught the pass, broke 1 tackle with his elusiveness, and took on 2 defenders at the 2.5 yard line. He spun out of 1 tackle and took his strength to the end zone against the other. Great play call, but even better yak play. Overall, his ability to make plays in the open field and use his physicality to gain extra yardage is among some of the best in this class. As a result, it closes out the positive section. Well, those were the strengths of Odunze's game. How about the negatives? The weaknesses in his game begin with his athleticism. Wait, his explosiveness is great. I really like his elusiveness. Yet, his deep speed will hold him back in the NFL. He was a fantastic deep threat in college, quite possibly the best deep threat in all of FBS in 2023, but his deep speed makes me concerned. Odunze is probably going to run a 4.35 at the combine if he participates, which is in the top 10%, but he hits that speed quickly. His deep speed past the 30 to 40 yard mark is not hard to catch up with if you are an NFL DB. His general athleticism is pretty good though. Despite that, he will struggle to get separation going deep in the NFL. That's where point 2 comes in. He's inconsistent at creating separation everywhere on the field, primarily when in man coverage. On many plays, he was unable to use his wide range skill set to separate from starting corners. I think this comes from him not being able to use his physicality to separate from cornerbacks. When these corners match his explosiveness and quickness out of his breaks, he struggles to separate using physicality. This clip is a great example of that, as against a good cornerback that he struggled to separate from all day, he tried to use his physicality to break. As a result, the DB returned the favor, and Odunze had no chance to separate from that corner. I want to specify that his inconsistencies come from man coverage, as in zone it's almost flawless. Man coverage on the other hand, not so much. And to wrap up the weaknesses section, Odunze has a physical frame, but I don't think he uses it as well as he can. As previously mentioned, if a DB can keep up with him athletically, he struggles to use his physicality to separate. But I also see his lack of physicality in his blocking. Overall, his blocking effort is not fantastic, but when he does try, it can be pretty inconsistent. On his best plays, he goes blow for blow with his assignment and gets a neutral rep. I think I saw maybe a couple blocking reps that he won. And with his normal plays, he's losing the reps. From him being unable to get his technique down, to being outmuscled by the DB, to even missing some blocking opportunities, it's not fun to watch. But I saved this one for last on purpose, simply because he's a wide receiver. A normal receiver isn't hitting blocking reps often, and Odunze is no different. I would just think he'd hit them more because of his size. Alright, my final verdict is in. Rome Odunze is a stud. Before I give you his grade, here's my final scouting report on him. His positives are: very nice frame at 6'3", 215 pounds. 3-level threat, will translate to the NFL. Crisp route runner, especially on outside breaking routes. Combo routes are beautiful most of the time. Catch radius is top tier in this class. Great hands that can haul in tough catches. Ball tracking skills are great. Yak threat, slippery in the open field, and spatial awareness is up to par. And his negatives are: deep speed is a genuine concern for translation. Separation in tight coverage is inconsistent. Some vertical breaks went on a little long. Not as physical as frame may give off. Releases against press is nothing great, and doesn't add much as a blocker. While the film wasn't as flashy as I expected, his negatives are nothing too concerning outside of his deep speed. His combination of route running and ball skills is phenomenal, so on paper he might as well be the #1 wide receiver. Obviously, with MHJ, that's not the case. My final grade for Odunze has him landing in the elite tier of first-round talents. These aren't easy to give out, but I have to for him. He lands as a mid-first round level, and he's my wide receiver 2 at the moment, which is last place because I only have 2 finalized reports, him and Marvin Harrison Jr. But yes, that is my final verdict on Rome Odunze. Do you agree with me? Do you think he's a first-round talent? Do you think he should go in the top 10? Let me know in the comment section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.